This podcast is sponsored by Jabra Enhance. Getting hearing aids is no picnic. It's expensive, confusing, time-consuming, right? Actually, no. With the Jabra Enhance Select and Premium package, you can get state-of-the-art hearing aids and professional care without the hassle. Jabra Enhance offers advanced rechargeable hearing aids delivered to your door for thousands less than you'd expect. No offices, no waiting rooms. Just take the online hearing test to personalize your hearing aids. Enjoy speech clarity, noise reduction, and hearing technology that adapts to your unique sound environments. And the audiology team can provide adjustments to your hearing aids remotely on request for 3 years. And the best part? You'll likely pay thousands less than if you went to a traditional audiologist. And now, for a limited time, save $200 when you order Jabra Enhance Select Hearing Aids with promo code PODCAST. Go to JABRAenhance.com, enter promo code PODCAST to save. JabraEnhance.com, code PODCAST.
For eligible individuals 18 and older in 50 United States and Washington, D.C. with mild to moderate hearing loss only. Audiology team may not be able to program hearing aids for some types of hearing loss. See website for details and important safety information.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to Handle with Care, Breast Cancer and Beyond. A safe place where both women and men can come and listen to real people talk about their breast cancer experience and the effects that follow well into survivorship. Hosted by Carrie Madrid, a stage 3 breast cancer survivor and founder of the CARE Project. It's time to Handle with Care.
And here we are back with another episode of Handle with Care, Breast Cancer and Beyond. My name is Chris Donovan. I am the co-host here with Carrie Madrid, and she is the founder of the careprojectinc.org. So go there and check out all the information that Carrie has up there to help breast cancer patients and families that are dealing with this. This podcast is just an extension of the Care Project Inc. And this week we have a really great guest. Her name is Amy Hartl. We're going to be talking about cancer culture. Now, Amy's the founder and creator of As We Are Now, and an oncology massage and lymphatic drainage therapist, and she's a woman impacted by breast cancer. Her mother, her grandmother, and herself all had breast cancer, and we're going to be talking to her about that and other things. And if you want more information while we're talking to her, go to amyhartl.com. That's AMYHARTL.com, or you can follow her on Instagram at as.we.r.now. All this information's on the website, thecareprojectinc.org, and enjoy the conversation with Amy Hartl, myself, and Carrie Madrid.
Joined today by my lovely co-host and producer, Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey, what's going on, Carrie? How are you?
I'm good. It's another lovely morning.
I heard you're almost dead from Pilates.
Yeah, Pilates tried to kill me. It's my new venture. I had a big, bright idea, like maybe this would be good for my scar tissue and my lymphatic system. And I thought this will be fun. But yeah, it's fun. Mm-hmm. In my face, it's fun. My legs are jello, but it's fun. So we have a really special guest today, Amy Hartl, founder and creator of As We Are Now, oncology massage and lymphatic drainage therapist, and a woman impacted by breast cancer. Hi, Amy.
Hi there.
Did I get all that right?
You did. You did.
I left out Clubhouse Queen. I just dubbed her that this morning. I'm like, so I met Amy on Clubhouse and I've just started poking around with it. And then as soon as I heard about it and kind of stuck my nose in it, I told Chris, oh my gosh, we got to get on this Clubhouse. But I haven't had the nerve to do it yet or the time, really.
Yeah.
So Amy is on Clubhouse and loves speaking all about cancer culture, right?
Yes.
Well, explain to people what that means to you.
Sure. Well, cancer culture is something that I've kind of started talking about. And the way I think of it is it has a lot to do with the fact that when someone is diagnosed with cancer, because of what the idea and the concept of cancer has become in our society, especially here in the West and the US, it's not just the experience that a person has isn't just their diagnosis and treatment and even what comes beyond. It becomes conflated with all of these perceptions and expectations of what society thinks a cancer experience is. And so it's everything that goes along with that. It's the language we use, the words and labels that we assign to ourselves and to each other. It's the way we interact and treat people who are living with a cancer history or cancer experience. And it can really impact the way a person experiences cancer, and not only in what is reflected back to them, but even in the way they live their story and share their story.
Right. And you yourself, obviously, like your description says, a woman impacted by breast cancer. So go into that a little bit and then we'll get going.
I tend to refer to myself as a woman impacted by breast cancer. I grew up with a family history. So breast cancer first entered my world when I was around 6 years old with my grandmother's diagnosis. And my mom was then diagnosed when I was 12. She was only 38. And so I grew up, luckily, both of them, well, my grandmother ultimately died years later of ovarian cancer, but my mom is still with us 33 years later. And so breast cancer has been a part of my life since I was quite young. I had my first mammogram at 23. This was before genetic testing was heavily prevalent or encouraged. And so we always I was treated as if I was high risk. And ultimately I was confirmed to have a genetic predisposition to breast and ovarian cancer. And I then was diagnosed in 2017 myself and went through surgery and treatment. And because of all of this, I actually ended up in 2011 when I was in massage therapy school, discovering the field of oncology massage and kind of really being drawn to it and falling into that as my career. So I have worked in Cancerland for several years, almost 9 years now. And I've lived in Cancerland on some level almost my entire life. And so for me, sure, I sometimes say I'm a breast cancer survivor. It's an easy term. It's an easy way to kind of sum up one aspect of my experience. But my experience with breast cancer is so much bigger than that. And
it's deeper.
It's deeper
than that, right?
It's deeper. It's more complex. And it's also, to me, saying that I've been impacted by cancer, it feels to me like it stops making it about the cancer and it makes it about me as the individual. And it's true. It's just a true statement that my life has been impacted by cancer. But when I say breast cancer survivor, there's a whole lot of other people's interpretations of what that means that becomes assigned to that term.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not against the term survivor. I'm really not against any particular word that someone chooses. But I am a big advocate for allowing people to tell their story in their own words instead of automatically assigning a certain idea or word to them just because it's what we tend to use.
Right. And I think that that's important to state because we're not here to say, you shouldn't say this or you have to say thriver or, because I will go back to my own experience. I call myself a breast cancer survivor. Like you said, it's default. For me, it's not about being easy or hard. It's the default. And if I'm keeping it real, which is how I operate, sometimes I feel like I literally just survived. Now that I'm 9 years out from diagnosis, I am thriving in life, but I'm still surviving all the bullshit that comes along with it. You, as a massage therapist, know what I'm dealing with my, 28 lymph nodes removed, massive scar tissue, which comes pain and spasms. And it's an everyday thing for me that I have to manage. Yeah. So I remember kind of being put off years ago when someone kind of challenged me and they were like, they corrected me. Right. And this is part of that cancer culture where I said, oh, yes, I'm a fellow survivor or something to that nature. And this woman very sweetly said, no, you're a thriver. And I was really put off by that. And I thought, who are you to tell me? Because to me, it's not just a title, it's a feeling. It's for me in that moment, it was about how I feel. And bitch, I feel like I just survived. You might be thriving because you're 15 years out. I'm not. Yeah. And that's okay. Right. So I don't want to fall into the shaming people. And I know you don't also. It's not about shaming somebody or making them conform to one way or another. I think what I found compelling about you and wanting to connect with you about was creating the conversation to broaden your mind and to just plant a seed to say, consider this. You don't have to adopt it, but just consider this, right? Because it is a default. And Cancerland is, man, poor Chris, when he agreed to produce the show, he fell into Cancerland with me and he knows so much more about it now.
I'm learning, and you know what? It's made me a better person. But I wanted to ask you a question, Amy. You said your grandmother was diagnosed at 6 years old, and then you were ended up diagnosed in 2017, which is what, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
You said you've been through it all in different aspects. Instantly, when you were diagnosed in 2017, were you treated differently by the same people that knew your mother and your grandmother had breast cancer? Like, were there like more kid gloves type, like, oh my God, she's got cancer now?
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, when you live at high risk, it's not something that a lot of people necessarily think about. People close to me in my world certainly knew that I had a family history. People who are close to me in my world knew that I lived at high risk. But to everyone outside of you, that high risk doesn't equate to the same it doesn't touch their lives in the same way it does when you are the one living at high risk. And I just turned 45. And so again, I'm of a generation that genetic testing and a lot of the really, the preventative, like prophylactic surgeries and things like that you do see a lot of young women opting for these days just wasn't as strongly encouraged or talked about. There weren't all these examples happening. So I just lived with monitoring. And then when I was diagnosed, I did feel, one, obviously there were people in my life who now, saw that this had transpired. And then of course there was the rest of the world who really didn't know anything about my high risk status. And they just saw that it had happened to me. And people do look at you differently. People treat you differently. And it's not all in bad ways, certainly. I mean, the love and support, I was very fortunate in that I received an outpouring of love and encouragement and support that was really incredible. And, even I had fairly minimal experiences, fairly minimal negative experiences where I felt like people were putting their stuff on me. I did certainly get a couple of emails from people I hadn't talked to in several years who felt it appropriate to say, oh, you need to read this book and you need to change your diet and you need to do this. And even that I chose to take that with love and appreciation and concern and just say thank you and let it go. But
let's stop there for a minute.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the topics that we talk about often, right, Chris?
Yes.
We get that people mean well, and we get that people feel the need to say something, not just to acknowledge it, but then, like I joke around a lot, but it's true that I remember in fact, it showed up in my Facebook memories not long ago when I announced I had been diagnosed, and everybody, there was a billion comments in there about, what you need to do, honey, you need to eat kale and you need to do this and you need to do that. And you need to do this. And I'll say this again, and I'll continue to talk about this. What you're doing, Chris, what you're doing by saying that to us it's to me, and of course I take everything personal because that's who I am. I'm sensitive like that. Is you're insinuating that I didn't eat healthy before, that I didn't take care of myself before. And that's offensive. And I realize it comes from a place of love, but we just share this over and over again so that people might stop and think before they speak. You don't really have to say anything other than I'm here for you,
Right.
Instantly when they say that, they're blaming you.
Right.
They don't see that angle.
Right.
And that's the hardest part, I think, about that.
And I think this is like, Amy and I talked briefly about this silver lining syndrome, right? Talk about that, Amy.
So I just came up with this term, silver lining syndrome, recently, because I've witnessed it a lot recently. My profession was I've always been hands-on, one-on-one in my studio working with clients. And because of that, I was always in somewhat of a bubble. I mean, I was aware of a lot of this stuff, but I wasn't heavily online in the cancer world. And so my interactions were very much one-on-one with my clients. I've worked in hospital settings. I entered oncology massage as soon as I became a massage therapist. And I was just very fortunate to grow up, which kind of did, to mature into this space with great mentorship. I was taught early on, we don't should on people. We invite, we offer, we suggest, we don't tell someone what they need to do or what they should do. We keep it person first, we make it about the individual and not the cancer, all of those things. So I was really lucky in that. And when I started to get online and talk more about cancer, both personally and professionally, I just became aware of how much of this was going on. And the silver lining syndrome kind of came about with that idea of that as someone who goes through cancer or really any kind of tough situation, that we are always supposed to find the silver lining, that we are always supposed to make the best of any situation. And I want to caveat that by saying I am a positive person. I am a silver lining person. I do tend to find the opportunity in challenges. I do tend to always somehow see that everything kind of works out, even when things are really shitty. And yet it's great for me to live that way. It's not okay when someone else, and this is one of the times when I will say that I think something is not okay, is that when someone is talking about a really hard or difficult experience or emotion that they're feeling, and they're really just seeking to be heard. And in that moment, we as humans want to make things better. And so what we do is we come in and say, well, look at it this way, or think about this, or this is the good part. And well, maybe this will, this, everything happens for a reason, and all of these things. And it can be really, really invalidating to the person who is experiencing that. And I've witnessed this, and I've witnessed it like in the comments on Instagram posts. I've heard it in some Clubhouse rooms where, a person was really just trying to share an emotion or share their thoughts of an experience. They weren't looking for anyone else to fix it or to point out the possible silver linings. And it could be that the person will find a silver lining, but let them come to that at their pace.
They have to get there. Yeah, they have to get there on their own.
Right. It's not our job to fix other people's feelings about their experiences. And that silver lining syndrome of kind of forcing someone to try and find the good in something like cancer isn't really fair. I mean, I do think that a lot of people find opportunity and find a silver lining, but not everyone has to. It doesn't make you a bad cancer patient, or it doesn't make you, your experience invalid or improper if you just need to kind of be in the suck for a little while.
Yeah, we say that all the time here at the Care Project. Like, look, you can get down up in your feelings if you want to, and I'm going to go there and wallow in the mud with you for a time, but then we're going to get up and we're going to keep moving forward. And that might not be pretty. It might not be, yay me, look at, I found the silver lining. F that, right? We may not.
Could
and
take
that's
months.
Okay.
Could take weeks, could take a couple of days, could take an hour.
Could take years.
Everybody's different. Yeah.
I mean, on a certain level, right? It could take years on a certain level. And that kind of, one of the other things that we talk about within the cancer culture term is the advocacy, right? Yeah. Not everybody needs to go write a book. Not everybody needs to go start a nonprofit or a business that, encompasses cancer patients and breast cancer specifically. Some of us do. Some of us find our purpose for the last half of our life, like me, starting the Care Project. You started your business, which fell in line with your career. So you're naturally and organically supporting other breast cancer patients. But how do you feel about that? Because we see it all the time online.
Yeah.
And that, you need to write a book. No, maybe I don't.
And that kind of, again, it kind of goes back to that, again, that silver lining, make your mess your message. You're going to find your purpose through this. This is God gave you this for a reason. I personally believe that advocacy is not a moral obligation of a cancer experience. It is absolutely okay if the way that you cope with having cancer is to show up for treatment, do your best, and then go back to trying to live your life in whatever way feels appropriate to you. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful that so many people end up in some form of advocacy. It's yes, we need research, we need awareness, we need we need all these things, especially in cancer spaces that are not as heavily funded and prevalent as breast cancer. There are a lot of people out there in with rare cancers and lesser known cancers, or cancers that just don't have the treatment options that those people wish there were more advocates. But it is okay to live your life. This is a personal experience and a personal choice in how we move forward in it. And there is, I think, a lot of pressure to turn, to become an advocate of some sort, to turn this experience into, well, how are you going to serve others, or how are you going to, give back if you've survived or overcome it, or, and all of that. And I just think that it's not everyone has to do that. This is
that's
something
not
we each get to
everybody's
do our own way.
Yeah. We see that here at the Care Project. A client or someone may come in and be a client of ours and need some support in some way, whether it's emotional or financial help while they're in the thick of treatment and whatnot. And then they move on. And in the beginning, I would be like, but wait, I need to know how you're doing. Not that I needed anything from them. I just, I get very emotionally invested in them. And
Sure.
I had to realize through the help of our licensed clinical social worker on our wellness team, she taught me Q-tip, which means quit taking it personal. Right? Q-tip.
Yep.
So she's like, you were there for a time that they needed you and they need to move on. And they may come back and they may not. But what I also find is sometimes clients will say, I swear when I'm better, I'm going to come back and I'm going to volunteer. And I'm like, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I should because look at all of you do it. I said, that's just how we're wired. That's what works for us. You're not obligated. And it's interesting to me that we have to tell them that.
Yeah, absolutely.
My wife and I were part of a large campaign about 11 years ago, raised $63,000 in 10 weeks. And we reached out to a lot of people. We weren't directly connected. This was for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society for Blood Cancers. And we're not directly connected. We have a friend that lost her dad. And we've been a part of this organization for a very long time. But I don't know how many people will come up and be like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Why are you doing this? And we're like, well, I mean, we just want to help. Like, oh, you don't have blood cancer? Anybody? I'm like, no, we're not directly connected. We just want to help. Oh my God, that's so awesome. I should do that. I'm like, no, you don't have to. Like, don't feel like you have to. Like, it doesn't make you a better or worse person at all. It's just something that my wife and I talked about a number of times, and this was the opportunity we could do it. Don't feel obligated. Just be nice to people.
Yeah.
Right. Be a good human.
It's interesting that you say that. I used to, long before I did any kind of actual advocacy for breast cancer, I actually fundraised for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And I got into it because they had a cool hiking program where you got to fundraise and you got to go hiking. And I wanted to do, I was looking for some sort of like activity that I would enjoy and that would have a volunteerism aspect to it. And that's the one that came along. And I personally have not been affected by blood cancers. But I was really, I was just loved the idea of joining something I enjoy doing and doing a good deed in turn. And that was my kind of first form. And, I had, because of having worked in the cancer space for a number of years prior to my own diagnosis, I actually had to think about whether or not once I went through this, I had to actually do some deep soul searching and decide if I could continue to work in this space. Because as much as I thought I understood, as much as I thought I knew and had this connection growing up high risk and having witnessed family members and loved ones and then clients go through it, it wasn't until I actually was diagnosed and went through treatment and surgery myself and now live with this, okay, what if, of the other side of the coin. I didn't know if I could keep working in this space. I didn't know if I could keep confronting other people's experiences every day in my professional life. I fought it and even once I decided I was going to continue in oncology massage, I didn't want to be breast cancer girl. Like I fought it for a long time. And ultimately I did decide that, okay, no, this is the space I need to be in. And therefore it's professional, it's personal now, it's everything, but it would have been acceptable. Even having had a professional career in this, it would have been okay. It would not have made me a bad person or a bad cancer patient or anything. If I had decided I'm no longer going to work in oncology, maybe I'm going to work strictly with general therapeutic massage clients because I can't do this. And that would have been okay.
So
for my own experience.
Right. And I totally relate because here at the Care Project, it's been 7 years, a labor of love, a labor of a lot of losing of patients who have become friends and family, and then seeing so many triumph and have other issues. I've had one friend that, lived through breast cancer, was doing really well. And then immediately following, and I mean like within a year of her last treatment, was diagnosed with ALS and was gone shortly after. And it's just like, talk about a punch in the gut, and these aren't my family, but they're like family. Mm-hmm. So there's times where I go, I think I might be done after this year with the care project. I think I want to venture out and do some other things, you know, for me. And that is met with great resistance from close friends of mine. And they're like, but this is what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, I believe that. I just don't know that it's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, right? I don't know. And so I really take it like every quarter by by quarter at this point. It's not annually anymore. It's quarter by quarter, you know. I love this space. I love having conversations through the podcast and hopefully on Clubhouse where we can just plant seeds so people can think and consider other ways and other perspectives. Doesn't mean yours is wrong, like we've said before, but consider this, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
How do you deal emotionally and psychologically? How do you feel or deal with the risk of recurrence?
Well, I would say for me that this work is kind of how I deal with it. You know, it's knowing my body, and that's a lot of what I teach with As We Are Now is helping people tune into their bodies. I try not to think about it too much. You know, I try not to dwell in it. Obviously, there are the what ifs. I've done a lot of.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Work on myself, therapy and spiritual study and everything else where I try to let go as much as I can. I try to give up the illusion of control. You know, I try not to worry about everything I put in my mouth or put in or on my body. That works for me. For others, it's really important to focus on those things because that helps them feel safe. But for me, I think it's about feeling as safe as I can in my body. And the way I do that is by understanding my body, you know, by listening to myself, by knowing what's going on under my skin. And for me, that's about more than cancer. That's about, you know, aches and pains. And because of what my background, I can relate them to this muscle or that, you know, I can assuage a lot of my own fears at times because I understand the interconnectedness of my body. I also do a lot with stress reduction, which for me is a huge thing because I understand the concept of homeostasis and that our bodies are always technically working for us. Mine happens to have a genetic blueprint error that means that it doesn't fight breast and ovarian cancer as well. So I did all the things that were within my control from a treatment standpoint. You know, I had adjuvant chemotherapy, even though I only had stage 1 breast cancer. I had a double mastectomy. Like I did the things that are going to create the greatest opportunity for cancer not to come back. Mm-hmm. And then going forward from there, I don't know, I continue to do the things that work for me. I exercise, I, you know, kind of pay attention to what's happening within my skin. And I go to my doctors if there's something that I really can't, that I don't feel comfortable explaining away. You know, that's how.
What's your best advice to someone who isn't as in touch? Because I think that's really important what you said, like, you know, the body because of your profession, right? But those of us that don't, right? How many times have we heard it? Oh, I have a headache. Is it brain cancer? Oh, I have, you know, this backache. Is it in my spine? What's your greatest advice to sort of tame that?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I think getting to know your body, I think integrative care is really important. I think working with people who are, you know, whether it's massage therapy or acupuncture, chiropractic, you know, cancer exercise specialists, like really getting to understand your body a little bit better and noticing. I think that we tend to live very outside ourselves. And we rarely, you know, we really don't take a lot of time to come within, or when we do, we're coming within in, you know, truly kind of more of a mindset idea, whether it's prayer and spirituality and meditation, but we don't necessarily come within our bodies. And I do believe that the more we notice how we move, how we sit, how we, you know, a lot of the things we feel in our day-to-day lives are pretty normal. They're pretty
Right.
common. They're not sinister.
We're just
But
hypersensitive, right?
we're just hypersensitive.
We are
right?
so hypersensitive. I
Yeah.
told Chris before, I don't know what it was. And I don't know, Chris, do you remember? I was like, oh, this happened and this happened. And instantly I went to, oh my God, is it in my brain? He's like, oh my God, Carrie. but that's the truth. It's like we go there, and I'm a pretty strong individual, like mentally I'm pretty tough, but there are days where I'm just like, holy crap, man, is this it? Like I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't live in fear. I think one of the things that you mentioned was the word that you used was control, right? And I think that's something that we all struggle with, right?
Yes.
Like you said, and I've said this before too, I was diagnosed very advanced stage, stage 3 with lymph node involvement. And this is what I tell people when they ask me. I've done everything I can do.
Mm-hmm.
I went as aggressive as possible with surgery, with chemo, with radiation. I tried taking tamoxifen and all the other estrogen blockers for a time. I couldn't tolerate them. And so now I'm just living the best way that I know how. I'm aware of what I put in my body. I don't obsess about it. If I decide, hey, Chris, we're going to have a shot of tequila, we're going to have a shot of tequila. I'm not going to have half the bottle. Right. So I think it's just about, we need to feel in control, and it's not just about the nutrition and the exercise and the mindset, but it's like you said, it's getting to know your body.
Yeah.
Right. I never thought I could do Pilates. I'm on my 6th class and I'm like, oh my God, I think my scar tissue is moving or something. I don't know. I got to talk to Amy about it. But we could do a whole show on that alone.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, one of the things, and I do this, the work I do does focus on women impacted by breast cancer, but that's a big part of what I teach is understanding the nature of scar tissue, understanding the muscles that live on our chest and under our breasts, whether we have them or don't have them or have, reconstructed. Because a lot of women will say things like, well, I'm having breast pain, but how can I have breast pain? I have implants. I don't have breasts anymore. Well, there's still a lot more going on in your body underneath where your breasts used to be or under where your implants now live. And, nerve damage is lasting and muscle pain and all of the connectedness. There's so much happening that most people just aren't cognizant of. And, just even having a little bit of that kind of insight or knowing your body, being connected so that for me, early detection was always the best method for, some people have to distance themselves. I prefer to stay very in tune because I feel like the best chance I've got is if something happens, I want to know as fast as possible. So
and that's your initial diagnosis to a recurrence. We tell people, I tell people I've talked to high schoolers and college age, like, touch yourself. This is not a sexual thing. This is a medical thing, right?
Right.
You need to know you're normal so that if anything comes up different, you're on it right away. And hopefully they've caught it early, and that's your best chance for survival, right?
Right. And the more you know you're normal, the less scary everything becomes too. Because, when things really are normal. I mean, one of the things that I've seen over the years and that prompted me to start As We Are Now in this program is that, especially in breast cancer, people become very disconnected from their bodies. Not only is there this idea, there can be an idea of, well, my body betrayed me or it's my body's fault or whatever, but it also can be, even if they don't feel that way, it can also be, I don't want to look at myself in the mirror anymore because I don't like what I see, or I don't touch myself, or I don't let other people touch me. And being able to
connected, they don't feel connected, right, to their body. A lot of women in particular say that to me. I don't feel like, even if they have, like, I don't have implants, but some do that I know, and they say, I've had probably half of the implant people that I know say they're not really mine. I don't feel like they're mine. And I read something on your website about that.
Yeah.
So tell us more, because we got to get out of here soon, but tell us what you do exactly and how people can reach you.
Sure. So I started a business called As We Are Now, and it is a private online membership community. I truly did that more selfishly than anything because as we've talked about cancer culture, I don't personally subscribe to a lot of the, what I call the breast cancer aesthetic, that kind of very common colors and symbols and all of that. And again, it's not that I think it's wrong. It's just not the way I tell my story. And I also don't like to share a lot of my private details online. I need a space to talk about them freely without social media, without the worry of public people seeing it who I don't want to. So I created a private membership community where we focus on monthly themes and we can talk about what life is like beyond breast cancer. And when I say that, I don't mean you have to be cancer free. I mean that we are talking about the bigger picture than simply like diagnosis stories or treatment stories. But the real core of it is the body empowerment program, which is right now it's an 8-week online self-paced course that really helps women come back into connection, come back into connection with their body, to learn to what I call open the lines of communication with your body, to begin to learn how to care for your body. I know you deal with lymphedema, and the risk of lymphedema is one of the least talked about aspects of breast cancer. And almost every woman who goes through breast cancer will have some level of risk, because even a sentinel node biopsy, and then you add on, more lymph node removed, and then you add on radiation, any of those, or any combination, any single one of those, or any combination thereof, creates a lymphedema risk. And there are things that we can do to reduce that risk by understanding those triggers. So that's a lot of what I teach. It's how to connect with your body. If you haven't touched yourself, if you aren't comfortable looking at yourself, I begin to bring you gently, slowly, safely into that physical connection again. And then also teach you how to do a lot of the scar work. How do you work with your own body? How do you reduce your own risk of lymphedema? How do you work, if you have early stage lymphedema, how do you work with it to manage it in between professional visits? And all of that creates a level of self-reliance and self-confidence. And that does go back to that mindset of feeling like you had the rug pulled out from under you. When most women do, most people, it's not like me. I'm the anomaly, where I kind of always grew up knowing this could happen. Most people don't expect a cancer diagnosis.
Right.
And so being able to understand what you can do within your own skin and for your body to feel like you can play an active role in your own recovery and healing is so empowering. And that's where a lot of that starts to come back to people then.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. Like, that's even important, for me being 9 years out. I always say, I'm just waiting, right? I'm not, and I don't subscribe to that. Don't put it out in the universe. It's going to happen. I don't subscribe to that personally. I don't. It's just reality for me. It's the world. It's the cancer land I live in. Working with the Care Project, is I see recurrences often.
Sure.
So for me, I think finally taking control of my health again and getting active, right, is my way of taking control. And even if mine were to come back, I know now that I'm in such better shape in terms of being in touch with my body, even than I was at age 40 when I was diagnosed, and in the best physical shape of my life. I still was very disconnected from my body, right? And now I'm way more in tune with it. I feel every damn little ache and pain. And I know now that I've been working out again, like what I can and cannot do. And I think that's really important.
Well, and I think ultimately we really can't control whether or not we're going to face a recurrence in our lifetime.
Right.
Yes, there are things we can do that are in our best interest, but I try to look at a lot of those things as, is this just good for me in general? What is going to make me live?
Right?
What's going to make me feel the best? I prefer to eat and exercise and do all those things out of a desire to feel good day to day, even more than I do out of a desire to possibly prevent cancer recurrence. And I think that by focusing on what we can do, it takes a lot of the pressure and the fear off of looking ahead of what might happen.
Yes.
And, like you were talking about, you're 9 years out, you're still dealing, you're dealing with lymphedema, you're dealing with scar tissue. All of that can still be addressed. It's never too late to start finding ways to become more comfortable and reduce actual discomfort in your body.
Right. That's important. I would love to have you back on so we could talk all about lymphedema.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your website and how can people reach you?
Sure. The website is amyhartl.com. So it's AMYHARTL. That's just my first and last name, amyhartl.com. I am on Instagram at as.we.r.now. And, but amyhartl.com will get you to my website with all of the information. And from there, you can find how to get to me everywhere else.
Perfect.
Do you allow men in your group, even though if they have breast cancer?
Oh, so currently no. And this is a really, this is something I'm sitting with right now because, pretty much all of the work I've done professionally has been with women because that is mostly who experiences breast cancer. And it is the lived experience that I have. However, I am very aware and empathetic to the fact that breast cancer doesn't care if you are, what your sexual identity was at birth, what your gender identity expression is now. And so I'm working on figuring that out. So right now it is focused on women. But I'm also part of this whole cancer culture thing is how can we start to expand the conversation to people who are, whether they're cisgender males, whether they're non-binary, how do we make this more about people? And so I am actively talking to people and kind of sitting with my own feelings on that, how I can make this more inclusive.
Maybe we could work with the Male Breast Cancer Coalition to even just do a quick workshop, like a one-time, just kind of fill out that conversation. There's a lot of the guys within the Male Breast Cancer Coalition that we provide sleeves for because they're dealing with lymphedema. And a lot of them too, we've struggled to find chest compression garments because they really fill up along the side here. I don't have that problem, but a lot of people I know do. So I don't know, maybe that's something, think about that, because we could definitely do, just a one-time thing where they had access to you, not necessarily in your community group online.
Yeah, absolutely. And my hope is that,
no pressure.
Yeah. As we are now, is not even a year old yet. And so I'm I do have long-term vision of how I can expand this work and make it more accessible and inclusive.
Thank you for everything that you do. Really, it's really important. And Chris and I are going to find you on, I've already found you on Clubhouse. Chris, you need to find Amy on Clubhouse. And then we need to figure out a schedule. Amy's in New York, so she's ahead of us, but we can have some conversations. I think we need to dig deeper. And a lot of the guys are getting on Clubhouse now too. So maybe we can have some conversation that will.
Yes, I've met some of the members of the Male Breast Cancer Coalition. I've met some people connected to you in Clubhouse, and they're awesome. And so I do always, all of my Clubhouse rooms are open to everyone. So Chris, thank you. I should actually go ahead and caveat that even though my current membership community is focused on women, that all of the conversations I have on Clubhouse within my club and rooms are completely open to all.
Perfect.
And to most cancers for that matter. To most of them are focused on all cancers, not just breast cancer.
Right.
Good.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, just opening the conversation is a good thing. Anywhere you do
it. Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds great.
All right. Take
care.
You,
Amy.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to Handle with Care, Breast Cancer and Beyond. Please let us know what you think of the show by leaving a rating and review. And don't forget to share it with a friend. For more information or to connect with Carrie, go to thecareprojectinc.org.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details. Can you have zero interest in something and still really want it? Your wallet would say yes. And with Simply Zero from South Carolina Federal Credit Union, you can transfer credit card balances and get 0% intro APR for 12 months. That's right. No interest all year. So you pay less and keep more. To learn more, visit scfederal.org/simplyzero. That's scfederal.org/simplyzero. Variable APR ranges from 11.74% to 17.99% thereafter. Limited time offer restrictions apply.